Hello, everyone. Tonight we're going to step into the sun-scorched sands of the Caral civilization, the oldest known society in the Americas. Thriving in Peru's Supe Valley around 2600 BCE, picture yourself standing on a dusty plain, the Andes looming like grumpy giants in the distance, while the desert heat slaps your face like an overenthusiastic high five. You probably won't survive a single day here, sorry. But it's true. The Caral people built massive pyramids without wheels, domesticated cotton before anyone else, and somehow made it work without pottery. You, with your smartphone and coffee addiction. Good luck. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Drop a comment below. Tell me what you think, what you'd do to survive, or what you want me to tweak next time. Oh, and speaking of ancient habits, ever notice how we still hoard stuff like cavemen? I swear, my closet's a tribute to some Neanderthal instinct to stockpile shiny junk. All right, let's dive into why Caral would chew you up and spit you out. Section 1. You're standing in the Supe Valley, and the first thing you notice is the heat. It's not "I need a fan" heat, it's my skin's auditioning for beef jerky heat. The Caral civilization, also called Norte Chico, picked this desert strip between the Andes and the Pacific to build their society. And you're here with nothing but your modern attitude and maybe a half-empty water bottle. Archaeological evidence points to a massive urban center, with 6 major platform mounds and circular plazas spread across 66 hectares. You're staring at the Great Pyramid of Caral, a 60-foot-tall monster of stone and adobe, built without metal tools or pack animals. You think dragging yourself to the gym is tough? Try hauling rocks under a sun that feels like it's personally offended by you. The valley's dry as a stand-up comic's wit. The Supe River, your only water source, is a trickle half the year, and you're already regretting not packing sunscreen. Historians are still debating whether Caral's people relied on irrigation or just prayed really hard for rain, but either way, you're not digging a canal with your bare hands. Your first task is to find shelter, but there's no Airbnb in 2600 BCE. The houses here are small, made of cane and mud, and you're not exactly Bob the Builder. You try to mimic the locals, who weave plant fibers into walls, but your attempt looks like a drunk spider's web. A local gives you a look that says, "Who invited this guy? And honestly, fair question." Oh, and here's an odd fact: the Caral people loved flutes. Archaeologists found 32 bone flutes, some carved from pelican wings, in one of their mounds. You try playing one to lighten the mood, but it sounds like a cat choking on a kazoo. The locals aren't impressed, and you're not winning any friends. You're dehydrated, your shelter's a joke, and the desert's laughing at you. You wander toward the river, hoping for a drink, but the water's muddy, and you're pretty sure something just slithered past your ankle. You're not built for this. Modern you needs Wi-Fi and a fridge, not a face full of sand and a flute that hates you. The day's only half over, and you're already dreaming of your couch. You try to join the locals hauling stones for the pyramid, thinking maybe teamwork will save you. Spoiler, it doesn't. Your arms are screaming, and the guy next to you mutters something in a language you don't understand, probably about your terrible work ethic. You're not sure if it's the heat or the embarrassment, but you're seeing spots. You drop a rock, nearly crush your foot, and decide to hide behind a mound for a breather. Bad move, someone's watching. And in Caral, slacking isn't a personality trait. It's a death sentence. The community thrives on cooperation, and you're the weak link. You're hungry now, but there's no drive-through. The locals eat fish, squash, and some weird beans you've never seen. You try to barter for food, offering your phone, but they look at it like you're holding a dead fish. You're out of your depth, and the sun's not setting anytime soon. You're not just surviving Caral, you're failing spectacularly. And this is just day one. Remember this moment. Because it's about to get worse. You're not cut out for the desert, and Caral's not rolling out the welcome mat. Section 2. You're still in the Supe Valley, sweating like you're auditioning for a sauna commercial. And now you're roped into the real work of Caral, building those massive platform mounds. Remember the Great Pyramid from your disastrous first day? Yeah, it's not going to build itself. Archaeological evidence shows these mounds, some over 100 feet wide, were constructed with millions of stones and shikra bags, woven reed sacks filled with rocks. You're handed a bag and pointed toward a quarry a mile away. Your back's already whining, and you haven't even started. The locals move like they've done this forever, which they have. While you're wondering if Caral has a chiropractor, you grab a shikra bag, and it's heavier than your entire gym membership. The stones you're hauling aren't pebbles. They're jagged, fist-sized chunks that cut into your palms. You trudge to the mound, tripping over the uneven desert floor, and the sun's still out here acting like your personal enemy. Historians are still debating whether these mounds were for ceremonies or just to flex on neighboring tribes. But either way, you're not feeling the spiritual vibe. You're just trying not to drop a rock on your foot again. One of the locals, a guy with arms like tree trunks, gives you a nod. You think it's encouragement, but it's probably pity. Here's an odd fact to lighten the mood. Caral's people were obsessed with gourds. Archaeologists found hundreds of dried gourds used as containers, some even carved with faces. You find one lying around and think, cool, a prehistoric water bottle. You try to drink from it, but it's got some funky residue, and now your mouth tastes like regret. You spit it out, and a kid nearby laughs great. Even the children are roasting you. You're not sure if it's the gourd or your life choices, but you're questioning everything. Back to the mound. You're supposed to stack stones in a precise pattern, but your pile looks like a toddler's art project. The locals use a system of knots and ropes to measure, like prehistoric engineers, but you can't even tie your shoes without a YouTube tutorial. You try to mimic them, looping a rope around a stone, but it slips, and the rock tumbles down the mound. The whole crew stops to stare, and you swear the desert itself sighs. You mumble, "My bad," but nobody speaks your language. And you're pretty sure oops isn't universal. You're exhausted, and it's not even noon. Your hands are blistered, your shirt's soaked, and you're starting to think the Supe River might be a better boss. You sneak a break, sitting on a half-built wall, but a supervisor, some guy with a fancy cotton tunic, barks something at you. You don't understand, but the vibe is clear. Get back to work. Slacker. In Caral, everyone pulls their weight, and you're pulling about as much as a soggy paper towel. You try to look busy, rearranging the same 3 rocks, but you're fooling no one. The physical toll is bad, but the mental game's worse. You're not just building a mound, you're part of a machine, and you're the rusty cog. The locals have a rhythm, a purpose, maybe even a chant you can't follow. You're an outsider, and every misstep reminds you. You think about home, where your biggest problem is a slow Wi-Fi signal. Here, a bad day means a collapsed wall or a hungry night. You drop another stone, and it rolls into someone's perfectly placed pile. They don't yell, they just fix it, which is somehow more humiliating. You're not cut out for this. The mounds are Caral's heartbeat, and you're flatlining. You glance at the horizon, hoping for an escape, but it's just more desert. Remember the flute you butchered yesterday? You're tempted to try it again, just to distract everyone, but you know it'll only make things worse. You're stuck, and the mound's getting taller while you're getting smaller. This is Caral's way of saying, nice try, but no, and trust me, it's about to get even less fun. Section 3. You're still in Caral. Your hands raw from hauling rocks for those platform mounds, and now you're handed a new job making cotton nets. The Supe Valley's fishing game is no joke, and archaeological evidence shows the Caral people wove intricate cotton nets to haul in anchovies and sardines from the Pacific, just 15 miles away. These nets weren't just for food. They were used in construction, carrying stones like the ones you fumbled yesterday. You're given a pile of raw cotton, a wooden spindle, and 0 instructions. Your fingers, already blistered, are about to stage a full-on rebellion. You sit on the hard desert floor, the sun still roasting you like a forgotten burger on the grill. The locals spin cotton into thread with a flick of their wrists, their spindles twirling like tiny tops. You try to copy them, but your thread looks like a toddler's attempt at yarn art lumpy, tangled and sad. A woman nearby smirks, and you're pretty sure she's thinking, "This guy's gonna starve us all." You mutter, "It's not that hard." But your pile of cotton begs to differ. Historians are still debating whether Caral's cotton trade sparked their economy or if it was just a survival flex. But either way, you're not contributing to the GDP. Here's an odd fact to break the tension: the Caral people had a thing for whales. Archaeologists found whale vertebrae in their settlements, probably dragged from the coast for tools or rituals. You imagine trying to lug a whalebone across the desert and decide you'd rather stick to failing at nets. You pick up your spindle again, hoping for a miracle, but it slips and rolls into the dirt. A kid picks it up, hands it back, and giggles. Great. You're the village clown now. You're supposed to weave your thread into a net, but your knots look like a conspiracy theory diagram. The locals use a technique called loop and twist, creating meshes tight enough to snag fish, but strong enough for construction. You try to loop, you try to twist, and you end up with something that couldn't catch a cold. The net's supposed to be a team effort, but you're the guy who brought a kazoo to a symphony. You glance at the river, thinking maybe you could just wade in and grab fish with your hands. Spoiler, you try, you slip, and now you're soaked and fishless. The locals don't even look surprised. Your stomach's growling louder than a disgruntled llama, and you're starting to realize how much Caral depends on these nets. No nets, no fish, no fish, no food, no food, no you. You try to barter for some lunch, offering your soggy, useless net. But the guy you approach just shakes his head and walks away. You're not sure if it's your net or your vibe, but you're striking out. You think about home, where you can order sushi with a tap. Here, you're one bad knot away from a very bad day. You keep at it, because giving up isn't an option when everyone's watching. Your fingers ache, and the cotton's starting to feel like your personal nemesis. You finally manage a half-decent knot, and for a second, you're proud until it unravels like your life choices. The woman from earlier walks over, adjusts your grip on the spindle, and says something you don't understand. Her tone's patient, but her eyes say, "Don't make me regret this." You try again, and it's slightly less terrible. Progress. Maybe, but time's not on your side. The fishing crew needs nets by dusk, and you're nowhere close. You're slowing everyone down. And in Caral, that's not just embarrassing, it's dangerous. The community thrives on interdependence, and you're the weak link. Again, you think about the whalebones and wonder if you could just hide behind one until this is over. But there's no hiding in Caral. You're stuck. Your nets are a mess, and the desert's still laughing. Remember the gourds you tried to drink from? You're starting to think they'd make better nets than you, and trust me, it's only getting trickier from here. Section 4. You're still in Caral, your hands a mess from failing at cotton nets, and now you're dragged into something even weirder, a ritual in one of the sunken plazas. These circular, stone-lined pits, some 65 feet wide, are the heart of Caral's spiritual life. And archaeological evidence shows they hosted ceremonies with music, offerings, and probably a lot of peer pressure. You're standing at the edge of a plaza, the desert heat making your shirt stick like a bad decision. and the locals are buzzing with purpose. You're handed a reed mat and told to sit, but you're clueless about what's coming. Spoiler, it's not a chill drum circle. The plaza's packed, and everyone's wearing cotton tunics that make you jealous of their laundry skills. A leader, some guy with a headdress that screams, "I'm important," starts chanting. And the crowd responds like they've rehearsed this for years. You try to blend in, mumbling nonsense to match their rhythm, but you sound like a karaoke reject. Archaeological digs found burned plant offerings and animal bones in these plazas, suggesting rituals tied to fertility or harvests. You're hoping it's just plants today, because you're not ready to sacrifice your dignity or anything else. Historians are still debating whether these ceremonies unified Caral's people or kept them in line. But either way, you're the odd one out. Here's an odd fact to cut the tension. Caral's people loved mirrors. Archaeologists found polished anthracite mirrors, probably used in rituals to reflect light or spirits. You catch a glimpse of one, and your reflection looks like you've aged 10 years since yesterday. You try to polish it with your sleeve, thinking it'll win you points, but you smudge it, and the guy next to you sighs like you've ruined his vibe. You mutter, "My bad," but mirrors aren't your thing, and neither are rituals. The chanting gets louder, and someone hands you a gourd rattle. You shake it, but your timing's off, and it's like you're playing maracas in a metal band. The leader shoots you a look, and you freeze, rattle in hand, wondering if bad at rituals is a deportable offense in Caral. They start passing around a drink, some fermented brew from squash or beans, and you take a sip, hoping it's a party starter. It tastes like regret and socks. And you cough, drawing more stares. You're not just failing, you're failing with an audience. The ritual shifts to a dance, and you're nudged to join. The locals move in sync, their steps precise, like they've got a prehistoric choreographer. You flail like you're dodging bees, and a kid in the crowd giggles. You're tempted to sit it out, but opting out isn't an option. Caral's all about community, and you're already the guy who botched the nets. You try to follow, but you trip on a stone, nearly face-planting into the offering pile. The crowd doesn't laugh, they just keep going, which is somehow worse. You're not spiritual, you're a liability. Your stomach's growling, and the ritual's dragging on. You're supposed to stay focused, but you're daydreaming about pizza and air conditioning. The leader burns some plants, and the smoke stings your eyes, making you sneeze mid-chant. If looks could kill, you'd be a Caral artifact by now. You try to redeem yourself by tossing a reed into the fire, but it lands on someone's foot, and you're back to square one. The mirrors, the rattles, the dance, it's all a language you don't speak, and Caral's not offering a translator. You're exhausted, and the sun's barely moved. The ritual's supposed to bond the community, but you're bonding with embarrassment. You think about the flutes you butchered way back, wishing you could play one to distract everyone, but you'd probably just summon a sandstorm. You're not built for this mystic stuff, and Caral's not cutting you slack. Remember the whale bones you didn't haul. You're starting to think hiding behind one was your best plan yet. The day's not over, and it's about to get hungrier. Section 5. You're still stumbling through Caral, your ego bruised from flopping at that ritual dance, and now your stomach screaming louder than a pelican flute. It's time to eat, but Caral's menu is not your friend. Archaeological evidence shows the Caral people ate a diet heavy on fish, squash, beans, and guava, with no maize or potatoes to lean on. You're standing in a communal kitchen area, a dusty patch with stone hearths, and the locals are prepping food like it's no big deal. You, meanwhile, are staring at a pile of anchovies like they're aliens. Your modern taste buds are begging for a burger, but you're about to learn why Caral's pantry would send you to an early grave. The desert heat's still roasting you, and the smell of fish hits like a salty punch. You're handed a squash and a flint knife, expected to peel and chop. Your knife skills are more infomercial blooper than chef, and you nick your finger, yelping loud enough to startle a nearby kid. The locals grind beans into a paste with stones, their hands moving like they're born for this. You try, but your paste looks like gravel soup, and a woman shakes her head, muttering something that's probably, "Who let this guy near food?" Historians are still debating whether Caral's diet was enough to sustain their population or if trade with coastal folks kept them alive. But you're not trading for anything with your track record. Here's an odd fact to chew on. Caral's people used avocado pits as tools. Archaeologists found pits shaped into scrapers or weights, which is cool until you try using one to peel your squash. You fumble, the pit slips, and now you're wearing squash guts like a badge of shame. You laugh it off, saying, "At least I'm biodegradable." But the kid from earlier giggles again, and you're starting to think he's your personal critic. You're hungry enough to eat the squash raw, but raw squash is like chewing a sponge, and you're not that desperate yet. You move to the fish, thinking you can redeem yourself. The locals grill anchovies on hot stones. No seasoning, no fuss. You try to gut one, but your knife slips, and fish slime coats your hands. You gag, and the woman from before gives you a look that says, "You're why we don't have nice things." You manage to grill a fish, but it's charred on one side and raw on the other. Culinary chaos. You take a bite, and it's like eating a salty eraser. Your stomach protests, and you're wondering if guava's any better. Spoiler, it's not ripe, and your face puckers like you've kissed a lemon. The real kicker: there's no surplus. Caral's food is day to day, and you're not pulling your weight. You try to barter for more, offering your half-eaten fish. But the guy you approach just walks away, probably to warn everyone about the weirdo with the bad knife skills. You're starving, and the beans you tried to grind are now a gritty paste you can't choke down. You think about home, where you've got a fridge full of snacks. Here, a bad meal means a bad night, and you're racking up both. You try to help with cleanup, hoping to score some leftovers, but you knock over a gourd of water, soaking the hearth. The locals don't yell, they just fix it, which is worse. You're not just hungry, you're a walking disaster. The community eats together, and you're the guy nobody wants at the table. You think about the cotton nets you mangled. Maybe if you'd nailed those, you'd have more fish. But you didn't. And now you're rationing a guava that tastes like regret. Remember the ritual smoke that made you sneeze? You're starting to think starvation's a worse punishment, and Caral's not done testing you. Section 6. You're still in Caral, your stomach grumbling after that disastrous fish fiasco, and now you're facing a new hurdle fitting into the social hierarchy. The Caral civilization was no free-for-all. Archaeological evidence, like elite residences near the Great Pyramid, suggests a theocratic society led by priests or chiefs who called the shots. You're standing in the shadow of a massive mound, the desert sun still trying to melt you, and you're supposed to figure out where you fit in this tightly knit pecking order. Spoiler, you don't. Your modern "I'll just wing it" attitude is about to crash harder than your attempt at grilling anchovies. You notice the big shots first, folks in fancy cotton tunics with shell necklaces, strutting like they own the Supe Valley. The rest of the crowd, dressed in plainer weaves, defer to them with nods and quick steps. You try to blend in, but your slouched posture and fish-stained shirt scream outsider. You approach a group hauling reeds, hoping to join their work crew. But a tunic guy barks something, and they scatter. You're left standing there, looking like you just asked for Wi-Fi in 2600 BCE. Historians are still debating whether Caral's leaders ruled through divine authority or just better access to fish. But either way, you're not on the guest list. Here's an odd fact to lighten the mood. Caral's people were into dental modification. Archaeologists found skulls with filed teeth, possibly a status symbol. You catch a glimpse of a leader flashing a filed grin, and you try to smile back. But your unfiled chompers just make you look like a confused tourist. You touch your own teeth, wondering if you could fake it with a rock, then decide you'd rather not add DIY dentist to your list of failures. You mumble, "I'll stick to flossing." But the kid who laughed at your squash mishap is back, smirking like he's keeping score. You try to make yourself useful, thinking maybe grunt work will earn you a spot. You pick up a basket of stones, but a woman in a plain tunic waves you off, pointing to a different pile. You're starting to realize every task is assigned, and you're not in the group chat. You try to mimic the locals' respectful nods to the tunic guy, but your nod's more awkward head bob than loyal subject, and he ignores you. You're not just low on the ladder, you're not even on it. Caral society runs on rolls, and you're the guy who showed up without a script. The real sting comes at a communal gathering. The elites sit near the plaza's center, getting first dibs on food, fish, beans, the good stuff. You're at the back, handed a measly squash chunk because you're nobody. You try to inch closer, thinking you can charm your way in. But a guard with a staff gives you a look that says, "Don't even." You mutter, "Fine. I didn't want your fancy fish anyway." But your stomach disagrees. The hierarchy's not just about status, it's about survival, and you're scraping the bottom. You think about home, where you can at least fake confidence on social media. Here, your lack of skills nets, rituals, food prep marks you as useless. You try to offer your phone as a trade, hoping it'll impress someone, but a kid pokes it and drops it in the dirt. The elites don't need your tech. They've got power, food, and filed teeth. You're tempted to storm off, but there's nowhere to go, just desert and more desert. You try one last time to fit in, carrying water for a work crew, but you spill half of it, and the crew's sighs are louder than your excuses. Caral's social machine is merciless, and you're the glitch. Remember the ritual you flubbed in the plaza? That was your chance to shine. And you blew it. Now you're invisible at best, a liability at worst. The tunic guy walks by, and you swear he's whispering about you. You're not climbing this ladder, you're falling off it. And trust me, Caral's got one last curveball to throw. Section 7. You're still in Caral, barely hanging on, ostracized by the tunic-wearing elite and running on fumes after a squash-only diet. Now, things take a darker turn. Caral's starting to unravel, and you're caught in its mysterious decline. Archaeological evidence points to abandoned settlements and empty plazas around 1800 BCE, with no clear signs of war or disaster. You're standing in a half-deserted plaza, the desert wind kicking up dust, and the once busy mounds look like ghost towns. The locals are tense, packing reeds and cotton, and you're wondering if you've stumbled into Caral's final act. Your modern instincts scream get out, but there's nowhere to run in this sun-baked nowhere. The vibe's off, the communal kitchen's nearly empty, and the fish supply's dwindling. Those nets you botched aren't helping. You try to ask a local what's happening, but your gestures get you nowhere, and the guy just hurries off with a bundle of gourds. The elites, usually strutting with their filed teeth, are scarce, and the work crews are slacking. You're starving, tired, and now paranoid, because Caral's not just rejecting you. It's rejecting itself. Historians are still debating whether drought, overpopulation, or social collapse tanked Caral, but you're living the fallout, and it's not a TED Talk. Here's an odd fact to keep you grounded. Caral's people left behind quipus, knotted cords used for record keeping. You find a stray one in the dirt, a tangle of colored strings, and think, cool, prehistoric spreadsheet. You try to untangle it, hoping it's a map out of here, but it's just knots, and you make it worse. A passing kid, the same one who's been laughing at you since day one, snickers and runs off. You mutter, "I'm not paid enough for this." But Caral's currency is fish, and you're broke. You try to pitch in, thinking maybe helping will buy you a spot in whatever's next. You grab a basket to carry squash, but the crew's moving fast, abandoning half their load. You follow, tripping over a discarded flute, and realize nobody's explaining the plan. The Supe River's lower than ever, and the fields of beans and cotton are wilting. You're thirsty, but the water's rationed, and your attempt to sneak a sip gets you a sharp glare from a woman with a staff. You're not just failing, you're a burden in a crisis, and Caral's got no room for dead weight. The plazas, once alive with chants and rattles, are quiet. You wander into one, hoping for a ritual to lift the mood. But it's just you and some scattered reeds. You pick up a mirror, like the ones from the ceremonies, and your reflection looks like a survival show, reject sunburned, scruffy, and scared. You try to rally, thinking maybe you can lead a pep talk, but we got this falls flat when a gust of sand buries your feet. You're not inspiring anyone, least of all yourself. The community's fracturing, and you're the guy who can't even tie a decent knot. You think about home, where a bad day means a missed delivery. Here, it's abandonment, hunger, and a sinking feeling that Caral's done. You try one last time to fit in, offering to carry a gourd for a fleeing family, but they wave you off, their eyes saying, "Save yourself." The mounds loom like tombstones, and the desert's closing in. Remember the whale bones you never hauled? You're tempted to hide behind one now, but even that feels pointless. Caral's slipping away, and you're slipping with it. Let's slow down. Modern life's got its flaws, but you're not dodging drought or social collapse. You've got clean water, a fridge, and a world where you don't need to file your teeth to matter. Caral's people built wonders without wheels or metal, but their world chewed up anyone who couldn't keep up like you. Today, you've got options: order takeout, binge a show, or just sleep without worrying about a dying river. Caral's collapse reminds you how fragile things can be, but also how lucky you are to have a safety net. So, next time you're stressed about a dead phone battery, think of Caral, and maybe give your Wi-Fi router a hug.